The sun had just begun to rise over the sleepy town of Millstone, casting a warm glow across the misty fields and the cracked pavement of its main road. Life here moved slow. Folks knew each other by name. Kids waved at passing mailmen, and the sheriff's word carried more weight than the mayor's. At the center of it all was Sheriff Walter Granger, a towering man with silver hair and a voice that could hush a room. He was respected, feared, and proud, especially of his daughter, Emily. She was his whole world. At just 17, Emily was bright, kind, and had plans of becoming a pediatric surgeon. She was the heart of the town. Everyone knew Emily. That morning, as birds chirped and the town prepared for another quiet day, no one could have guessed that within hours, the sheriff's world would collapse, and that the reason for it would be rooted in a decision made by his own deputies, driven by the color of a man's skin. Meanwhile, several miles away, Dr. Elijah Rowe had just finished a 36-hour shift at a major hospital in the city. At only 34, he was already one of the nation's most respected trauma surgeons. A black man. Who had grown up in foster care, Elijah had beaten the odds with relentless hard work, discipline, and a heart that never hardened, no matter what life threw at him. He wasn't just a doctor, he was the doctor people called when time was running out. And on this particular morning, he was heading to Millstone for a speaking engagement at a local health fair. It was supposed to be a simple drive through the countryside. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. As Elijah neared the town border, blue lights flashed behind him. He checked his speed. He wasn't speeding. His taillight worked. He was wearing his seatbelt. Still, he pulled over, hands on the wheel, polite. Two deputies approached. One had his hand resting firmly on his holster. License and registration. Elijah offered both, calm and professional. Sure. May I ask what the issue is, officers? You driving a car like this through Millstone? You tell us. It wasn't the first time Elijah had faced this kind of thing, but he hadn't expected. Here. Not when he was on his way to speak at a community event hosted by the very hospital Sheriff Granger supported. Despite his calm demeanor and clear credentials, the deputies kept him on the roadside for nearly 40 minutes, checking nothing, questioning everything. And at that same hour, less than 6 miles away, Emily Granger collapsed in her high school hallway. Students screamed as teachers rushed to her side. Her skin was clammy, her breathing shallow. She was going into cardiac arrest. The school nurse called 911. The dispatcher sent out the alert. Trauma case, teenage girl, probable congenital. Heart episode. The closest trauma surgeon available? Dr. Elijah Rowe. Except he never got the call. He was still being interrogated beside his car, forced to explain why he had surgical equipment in his trunk, why he had medical badges, why he was black and driving a Mercedes. Meanwhile, back at the high school, Emily's condition worsened. Paramedics arrived and stabilized her, but they needed a trauma surgeon. Fast. The hospital scrambled, calling every doctor within a 30-mile radius. Elijah's phone never rang. The deputies had confiscated it for verification. Time was running out. And across town in a crowded city bus, 16-year-old Malik Johnson sat with his headphones in, watching the trees blur by. He was on his way to visit his grandmother in Millstone. She was sick, and he hadn't seen her in months. Malik was quiet, observant, with a heart bigger than most people twice his age. He always noticed things other people missed. That's when he saw her. A young white woman, visibly pregnant, got on the bus. No seats. People glanced up, then quickly back down at their phones. No one moved. Malik didn't hesitate. He stood, smiled, and offered his seat. "Ma'am," he said, "you can have mine." She looked surprised, grateful even. "Thank you," she whispered as she sat down, clearly in discomfort. The bus rumbled forward again. Malik stood for the rest of the ride, gripping a rail, his mind already drifting to the homemade peach cobbler his grandma always made. What Malik didn't know was that his small act of kindness would be the thread that tied all of this together. Emily's collapse, Elijah's delay, the sheriff's heartbreak, and that the woman he gave his seat to was more than she appeared. When she got off the bus, she slipped a folded note into his hoodie pocket without saying a word. He didn't notice until later. And when he read it, everything changed. Back at the hospital, Sheriff Granger was pacing outside the emergency room doors, his badge clipped to his belt, eyes red, jaw clenched. His deputies stood silently behind him, not daring to meet his eyes. The doctors had done everything they could, but without the right trauma surgeon on site in time, Emily's chances had slipped away. Her heart gave out before help could arrive. When the attending physician quietly said, "We needed Dr. Rowe. He was supposed to be here. We couldn't reach him," something broke in Walter Granger. He turned to his deputies, and everything he thought he knew about loyalty, about justice, about the men he trusted was about to shatter. But at that exact moment, Malik was walking down a quiet sidewalk, the note still unopened in his pocket, unaware that what he was holding would soon make national headlines and expose the truth behind the chain of events that led to a sheriff's unimaginable loss. And just as he reached for it, his phone buzzed, a number he didn't know. He paused, staring at the screen, then answered. "Hello?" A woman's voice responded, shaking, urgent. "Is this Malik? I'm the woman from the bus, please. I need to talk to you, that note. It's not just a thank you." And in that instant, Malik's life changed too. Just like that, 3 strangers, 1 doctor, 1 sheriff, 1 teen, bound by a moment, in time, set on a collision course that none of them could have ever seen coming. And as the sun set over Millstone, the town would never be the same again. Malik froze on the sidewalk, phone pressed to his ear. The woman's voice trembled on the other end. She didn't sound afraid of him. She sounded afraid for him. People passed him by without a second glance, but in that moment, Malik felt like the whole world had gone quiet. The wind rustled through the trees. A dog barked somewhere in the distance, but all he could hear was her voice. "I need you to read that note. Right now. Please." His fingers dug into his hoodie pocket, heart thudding against his chest. He pulled out the folded paper, still slightly warm from being against his body all day. Slowly, he opened it. The handwriting was rushed but clear. "If anything happens to me, or if they ask about the man in the car, tell the truth. You're the only witness. K." He blinked. What did it mean? Who was they? And what man in what car? Malik looked around like someone might be watching him, but the street was empty. The line crackled in his ear again. "Did you read it?" she asked, voice low now. "Yeah," Malik whispered. "But I don't understand." The woman hesitated. Then she said something that made his blood go cold. "Someone was supposed to die today, and you may be the only person who can prove why." Miles away, Sheriff Granger stood silently in the hospital hallway, staring through the glass at his daughter's lifeless body. He couldn't feel his legs, he couldn't even breathe right. Emily had always been strong, always smiling, even when he worked late shifts or missed her piano recitals. She always forgave him. She never asked for much. And now she was gone. Dr. Palmer, the attending physician, stepped closer, her voice calm but firm. "We tried everything, but the kind of procedure she needed, it wasn't something we could handle here. We had a trauma surgeon scheduled to speak at the health fair, Dr. Rowe. We paged him, called him. He didn't respond." Walter's eyes narrowed. "You said Rowe? Elijah Rowe?" Dr. Palmer nodded. "Yes, he was the best shot we had." Walter turned slowly to his deputies, Deputy Marshall and Deputy Benson. They stood at attention, suddenly pale. Walter's voice dropped to a low, dangerous tone. "Did you pull over a black man driving a Mercedes this morning?" The deputies exchanged a quick glance, unsure of how much to reveal. It was Deputy Marshall who finally spoke. "Yeah. So we thought the car looked suspicious. He didn't match the profile. Had hospital tags and all, but profile." Walter barked, his voice rising. "Profile. That was Dr. Elijah Rowe. the best trauma surgeon in the state. My daughter needed him. The hallway fell silent. Nurses looked away. The deputies stiffened, speechless. Walter's fists clenched at his sides. He had always believed he kept racism out of his department, or at least pushed it into the shadows. Now, in the most brutal way imaginable, it had come to his own doorstep. But even then, Walter didn't know the full story. Not yet, because Elijah hadn't just been detained. He'd been humiliated. His phone had been taken, his ID questioned, his vehicle searched without consent. He had missed multiple calls, one of you. Then the hospital's desperate plea for help. And when they finally let him go, Elijah didn't argue. He didn't shout, he didn't even look angry. He just sat in his car, stared at the hospital on his GPS, and let the weight of everything sink in. He was too late. And no matter what apology the sheriff or the department offered now, it wouldn't bring Emily back. Back on the sidewalk, Malik was still holding the note in one hand, the phone in the other. The woman, her name was Kate, was telling him bits and pieces. She had seen the deputies pull over Dr. Rowe. She was in the car behind them, and what she saw didn't sit right. They weren't checking IDs. They were grilling him. One of them laughed when he said he was a doctor, she told Malik. I wrote the note because I couldn't stay. I was late to my appointment, and they looked angry. I didn't want them to see me watching. Why give me the note, though? Malik asked, voice trembling now. You gave me your seat. I figured you were the kind of person who'd do the right thing. Her voice broke a little, like she was trying not to cry. Malik, listen. I've been getting weird calls all day. People asking if I told anyone what I saw. I think someone's trying to cover it up. He didn't know what to say. He was just a teen. But now he was in the middle of something much bigger than him. Bigger than anyone had guessed. Back at the sheriff's office, Walter sat alone in his chair. He had dismissed everyone. His office, usually filled with laughter, radio chatter, and small-town gossip, was dead silent. He pulled out the report from earlier that morning, the traffic stop on Dr. Rowe. The incident was marked routine. Stop, driver released. No mention of the delay, no mention of the confiscated phone, no mention of the fact that the man they'd stopped could have saved his daughter's life. His fingers trembled as he looked at the signatures at the bottom. Marshall, Benson. He'd trained them. He'd vouched for them. He had once told Emily, they were good men. Now all he could think about was her lying there, cold and still, and the man who could have saved her, treated like a criminal. Meanwhile, Elijah sat in his car in a parking lot, staring at his hands. Those same hands had saved hundreds of lives. White, black, rich, poor. It had never mattered to him. But this morning, to two men with badges, the only thing that mattered was the color of his skin. He didn't want to talk to the media. He didn't want to cause trouble. But this wasn't just about him. A young girl had died. And he could have saved her. But even he didn't know the full chain of events yet. The pregnant woman, the teen on the bus, the note, the silent witness, and the secret that was about to unravel everything in Millstone. Somewhere in the background, in the tangled mess of this tragedy, someone else was pulling strings. Someone who knew exactly what happened that morning. Someone with a reason to make sure Dr. Elijah Rowe didn't get to the hospital on time, and that someone was still watching, still waiting. And Malik? He had no idea yet that the note in his pocket had just made him a target. Malik didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the note tucked under his pillow like a secret burning a hole through the fabric. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the sheriff's daughter lying lifeless in that hospital room. He saw the red and blue lights flashing on Dr. Rowe's windshield, and he saw Kate's face on the bus, tired, afraid, and yet somehow calm, when she handed him that folded piece of paper. The next morning, Malik didn't go to school. He took the long way around the neighborhood, avoiding familiar streets head down. He passed the diner, where old men sipped coffee and read the paper. He passed the barber shop where Mr. Tillman always had something to say about everything. But today, the town was quieter, like everyone could feel something was off. Malik's phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Tonight, 7 p.m., corner of Pine and West. Come alone. No name, no explanation, but deep down he knew it had to do with the note. He had shown it to no one but Kate. And somehow someone else already knew. At the same time, across town, Sheriff Walter Granger stood inside his office, staring at a photo on the wall. It was him and Emily at the county fair 2 summers ago. She was laughing, holding a giant teddy bear, cotton candy in the other hand. That was the day she told him she wanted to be a doctor. Like her mom, he couldn't bear to take the picture. Down. His department was spiraling. The 2 deputies, Marshall and Benson, had been placed on administrative leave, but the whispers were growing. People wanted answers. Some were angry, others were scared. The story hadn't hit the press yet, not officially, but it was only a matter of time. And Walter knew that when the truth came out, it wouldn't just be about what happened on that roadside. It would be about what had been allowed to grow in the shadows of his department, about the quiet bias, the unchecked power. What he didn't know yet was that someone was already working behind the scenes to make sure the truth never came to light. Dr. Elijah Rowe sat in his home office, the file in front of him untouched. His hands were clasped tightly, his jaw tense. A reporter from a local station had called earlier, wanted his side of the story, wanted him to go on record. But Elijah wasn't sure if that would help or just put a target on his back. He wasn't naive. He'd dealt with subtle racism in the medical field for years. People doubting his credentials, patients requesting someone more experienced, even when he had the best record in the hospital. But this was different. This time, a child had died. He remembered the young woman's voice on the hospital line, the way she sounded panicked, begging him to hurry. He had thrown on his coat, grabbed his keys, and left immediately, only to be pulled over less than 5 minutes from the hospital. He explained, showed them everything, but they weren't listening. One of the deputies had even smirked, asking if he really expected anyone to believe he was a surgeon. He had never felt so powerless. Now there was word going around that a witness saw the whole thing. Elijah didn't know who they were or what they'd seen, but part of him hoped they would speak up, because staying silent was starting to eat at him. Kate sat in her car outside her clinic, hands shaking as she lifted her coffee cup to her lips. She hadn't told anyone, not her boyfriend, not her co-workers, about the note or the teen on the bus. She kept thinking about that moment, how Malik didn't hesitate. He just stood up and let her take his seat like it was nothing. That small act of kindness had stuck with her. So when she saw the police roughing up a man in scrubs, her gut said something was wrong. And when they started laughing, her heart sank. She had written the note in a rush, scared she might be pulled into it if she stayed. She hadn't meant for it to become something bigger, but now she was scared for Malik. She had tried calling him again, but his phone kept going to voicemail. The town of Millstone wasn't the kind of place where stories like this stayed quiet. And yet, nothing had made it to the news. Not a single headline. That only made it more suspicious. That night, Malik stood on the corner of Pine and West, the street lamp flickering above him. He kept checking over his shoulder, his palms sweaty. He clutched the note in his jacket pocket just in case. At exactly 7 p.m., a dark sedan pulled up. The window rolled down slowly. "Get in," a voice said. It was a woman, firm, but not unkind. He hesitated. "Please, I don't have much time. I'm trying to help you." Malik climbed in. The woman looked straight ahead, engine idling. "I work in city records. My name's Lila. I saw a copy of the deputy's incident report. It was altered. Times changed, details missing, and someone flagged it. Someone with high clearance." Malik stared at her. "Why are you telling me?" "Because you're the only one with something real. That note. I don't think it's just about what they did to the doctor. I think someone higher up wanted him stopped. And your friend on the bus? She might be in danger too." Malik's throat tightened. "Kate." Lila nodded slowly. "They're trying to erase witnesses or intimidate them into silence. You're both in the way." He couldn't breathe for a second. The car suddenly felt too small, like the walls were closing in. Why would anyone want to stop a doctor from getting to the hospital? Lila looked at him for the first time. That's the question. And I think the answer is worse than anything we're guessing. She handed him a flash drive. On here's a backup of the original stop report, unedited. You'll see the timestamps, the dispatch audio, everything. Malek took it, heart pounding. Why me? He asked again, barely above a whisper. Because you already did the right thing once. Maybe you'll do it again. As she drove off, Malek was left standing alone, gripping the flash drive like it was the last piece of something bigger. He didn't know yet who he could trust, or how far this web went, but the pieces were falling into place. A corrupt traffic stop, a delayed doctor, a grieving sheriff, a dead girl, a witness with a note, and someone, somewhere, pulling strings. Behind it all, someone with something to lose if the truth came out. But the truth was already moving. And Malek? He wasn't just a witness anymore. He was the spark,